May I now request Dr. Tahmima Anam to address us. She is not only a social anthropologist, but more important than that, she is a novelist. And she has done a novel, the latest one is named as The Good Muslim. And I think this is a question which is probably at the back of many minds in the kind of times we are living in. And I'm sure you may kindly enlighten us, not only on the diaspora aspect, but also on the good Muslim aspect.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, distinguished guests, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor for me to be here with you today, and I'd like to thank the Institute of South Asian Studies for inviting me. The topic is the importance of creativity in emerging South Asia. The German philosopher Walter Benjamin, when writing about Europe in the interwar years, said that the state of emergency in which we live is not the exception, but the rule. So what is the nature of our emergency today in South Asia? And how do we turn this state of emergency into a state of emergence? How do we treat both our status as emerging nations, as nations which are on the cusp of great change, and yet also bear in mind that the many emergencies that afflict us are still urgently in need of being addressed? And how do we, as emerging societies and economies, interact with and negotiate with the larger world at our doorstep, a world that is coming increasingly close with migration, technology, and the greater connectedness that the world offers? I would like to assert that in order to tackle both the great potential that our progress promises, and yet to attempt to make this progress democratic, egalitarian, and fair, we need particular tools with which to navigate the rough and exciting seas ahead. And among the many solutions that have been proposed today, I would like to add the importance of the creative endeavor as one of the building blocks of our new and emerging frameworks. The creative impulse is at the heart of what it means to be human. It is our greatest and most unique and most universal quality. And it is, in my opinion, crucial to nurture this quality as we confront the challenges and possibilities of this new era. Let me first set out a problem, and I'll use Bangladesh as an example because it's the place that I know best. Bangladesh, as you know, despite its many challenges, is a country with great potential, and Mr. Sohail Rahman discussed a lot of this potential earlier today. You know, we've had 5 to 6% growth over the last 5 years. We have a thriving garments industry. Our social indicators, education and health are improving, and we have a legion of migrant workers who fuel our economy. Education, and particularly higher education, is therefore a pressing issue in Bangladesh. In Bangladesh, we have 23 public universities and 54 accredited private universities. Not one of these private universities offers a major degree in visual or performing arts, creative writing, filmmaking, painting, sculpture, or music. This means that entire generations will end their formal education without any structured exposure to the arts. There is a mistake. This comes from a mistaken assumption that the arts are not practical and that they should be treated as subjects that are whimsical and should be, just taken up as hobbies. Many of you young people here have probably been told by your families and mentors that you must pursue degrees in engineering or medicine in order to get ahead in life. And I don't want to discourage the future doctors of the region, but I would just like to refute this assumption on 2 counts. The first count is financial. It is assumed that careers in the arts don't pay. This is a false assumption. Let me give you the example of the publishing industry in India. 20 years ago, books in India were imported by foreign publishers and sold for quite high prices in sort of dusty bookshops that were only frequented by a handful of educated people. Today, India is the 3rd largest market in the world for English language books. It's growing at a staggering 30% a year. Currently, 40,000 titles are published annually. And today, Indians write, publish, and purchase their own books, supporting a thriving industry, and many of the writers that were mentioned earlier today come from that thriving industry and benefit from it. Not only does this mean new opportunities for writers, but it means jobs for people in the publishing industry, for literary agents, booksellers, literary festivals that have recently popped up all over the subcontinent, and of course for the media. But when I say the creative endeavor, I don't just refer to the arts, but to creativity in general. We know that the opportunities and challenges that we face as emerging economies depend on our ability to find creative solutions to the problems that we face. Innovation is at the heart of progress, at the heart of the entrepreneurial spirit that we've been talking about so much today. Take the mobile phone. It is a testament to human innovation that over the last 20 years, the mobile phone has grown smaller, more powerful, lighter. It's grown cameras and touchscreens. These are all acts of creative innovation, but it also took a great act of creative genius to place the cell phone in the hands of rural women and turn them into entrepreneurs, which is what Professor Muhammad Yunus has done in Bangladesh. But I don't just want to emphasize that careers in the arts can be profitable or that creativity leads to economic growth, but also that we must, as emerging nations, place value on the arts as things which are important in and of themselves. The arts must have a value in our societies, even as we approach the practical issues of giving people jobs. I want to talk about two of my most beloved writers, Rabindranath Tagore, who's been in this room a lot as a presence today. He's been brought up many times, and a slightly lesser-known writer, Rokeya Sakawat Hossain, who's also from Bengal. Tagore, as many of you know, was the monumental poet, novelist, essayist, and songwriter of Bengal. He chronicled through his fiction and essays the great changes that occurred in South Asia at the turn of the century. And what, you may ask, is Tagore's relevance today, other than maintaining a sense of Bengali identity for the many generations who read him and sing his songs? What can he tell us about the world that we live in today? The answer is he tells us a lot. In his short stories, Tagore draws portraits of the lives of people whom you and I will never meet. His subjects were not just people like himself, the elite Bhadralok of Bengal, but the peasant, the tenant farmer, the laborer, the servant. From the little girl in his famous short story, Postmaster, to the landless peasant in his lyric poem, Dui Bigha Jomi, Tagore gives us a glimpse of the lives of people who are at the center of our emergency and our emergence. To this day, no writer has been able to capture the otherness of Tagore's characters. No writer has been able to hold up a mirror to society as he has done. You cannot read Tagore and not be transformed. Tagore reminds us of the critical role of the imagination. To this day, we have no form better than the novel to give us an understanding of the inner workings of another human being. We've built powerful telescopes that give us insights into galaxies, into the world beyond our planet. We've built microscopes so we can look at the smallest particles of human life, and yet we have no tools that teach us about the mysterious inner workings of the human heart, and for that we depend on writers and artists. And of course, I favor literature because I'm a novelist, but think of the impact of filmmaking on your ability to imagine the lives of others, people who you may never meet in your lifetime, but to whom you are connected by a thread of empathy. This is a gift that artists give us. The ability to fully imagine the larger world around us, but not just the larger world in the abstract, but through particular lives and individuals. And this is what makes a diaspora more than just a shift from one place to another. Rokeya Sakawat Hossain was a writer and educator who lived at the turn of the 20th century, and who founded the first school devoted to the education of Muslim women in Bengal. The Sakawat School, founded in 1911, is still open today and has been responsible for educating generations of Muslim women. But Begum Rokeya was also a writer. In 1905, she penned a novella called Sultana's Dream. In this story, a character called Sultana has a dream about an alternate world, which she calls Ladyland. And I'm particularly glad that I'm bringing up this story because I'm the first woman to be speaking today. So, in Ladyland, women are in charge. They basically rule the world. In Rokeya's time, when she was writing, women were sequestered in a part of the house called the Zinana. So she wrote about in Ladyland that the men were actually sequestered, and she called this part of the house the Mardana, Mardana meaning men in Urdu. So the men are sort of locked away, and without men, women become excellent leaders and innovators. They use technology to deter their enemies. They harness the power of the sun to build weapons. They create a peaceful, egalitarian society in which beauty and truth reign supreme. Written at a time when the women of the subcontinent enjoyed very few freedoms, Sultana's Dream is a startling and groundbreaking depiction of a feminist utopia. Like Tagore, Sakawat Hossain reminds us of the power of the imagination. In this case, it is not the earthly realities around us that she depicts, but a portrayal of the future, the potential of women to become fully empowered citizens whose power is unleashed through a free and fair society. Sakawat Hossain inspired many women that have followed her, from those who studied at her institution to those who read her treatise of an equal future. When it comes to the diaspora, of course, we have many examples of writers who have documented migration. Jhumpa Lahiri has written delicate and subtle portraits of Bengalis in North America. Recently, Amitav Ghosh has traced a much earlier set of migrations in his Ibis trilogy, in which he writes about the opium trade. And in The Reluctant Fundamentalist, Mohsin Hamid writes about an exiled Pakistani and his dislocations and alienations as he becomes educated and lives in New York. So we have no dearth of chronicles when it comes to the South Asian diaspora, or chroniclers, that's what I meant. So my point is, to conclude, I'm going to finish now, is that we desperately need our artists to give us a felt sense of the larger world around us, to help us to understand what it means to have been born into a completely different life, and to document the great changes that are occurring among us as we move and spread ourselves all over the world. The holy month of Ramzan is almost upon us, and one of its aims is to give us, those of us who live privileged lives, a small taste of what it is like for the many who struggle to meet their very basic human needs. This too is the aim of the artist, to create within us the ability to imagine poverty, to imagine difference. In this globalized world in which so many of us live in countries other than the ones we were born in which our connections to distant shores are intensified by work, business, and the exchange of people and goods and ideas at faster and higher rates, the flexibility of our imaginations has become more and more important. So my final message to you is this: we need our painters, our musicians, and our poets. We need them to remind us of who we are, and we need them, most importantly, to point us in the direction of where we want to be. Thank you.
Thank you so much for also introducing the question of gender justice. You're the first lady speaking, but on the very first day itself. Thank you so much.